So SharpPlot is the new fashionable things to do. I'm going to give a little bit of background. It used to be called RainPro. What is RainPro? RainPro was an APL package, so a bunch of APL functions doing charts. So the idea is to generate charts from the data automatically, right? Have APL scripts that make charts and not draw them yourself, right? And the output could be either raster graphics or vector graphics, or could be web integrated or GUI integrated. The philosophy behind it, and I think that's where Adrian had really brilliant ideas and make it work well. So a couple of simple rules. First target was publication quality. We don't want just 100 pixel charts. We want to be able to print it on true printers. And the way he did that was to use PostScript, which was a good move at the time and proved to be a good thing to do. So yeah, PostScript is let's say a standard way to talk to printers. It's a vectorial graphics language, so basically it's like somehow you have a pen and you move it around a grid of points, and then you say draw, and then you move it. So it's vectorial. It's not raster. Maximizing data readability. So the idea is that the whole point of a chart is for data to be readable, not for the chart to be beautiful, right? So that's the first target. And the second target is to avoid spurious decoration that prevent people from actually precisely seeing the data. Mind you, if you want to do spurious decorations, RainPro and SharpPlot allows you to do that. So we don't really prevent you, we just try to avoid it. And another of Adrian's rules was have a good set of defaults, so that people don't have to think too hard about which color I'm going to use, which lines, styles I'm going to use, and so on. So yeah, so that you don't have to tweak all the parameters unless you really want to. So that was RainPro. So it has been an APL workspace available for a number of years. I don't know where it started. It was in early 90s, wasn't it? Yeah. Anyway, so what happened to RainPro is that it became SharpPlot. What is SharpPlot? It's basically the same thing with a very few set of differences. The main difference being that it's C# translation of RainPro. So the functionality is the same. The API is very close. It does the same job basically, but it does it in C#. And if I can reassure you that it's very close to what RainPro used to do, if you are used to using RainPro and you don't really know about SharpPlot, is that the source code is very close to the RainPro source. I mean, the APL code is the same, and then that APL code is translated into C# by a tool that Adrian made, another tool that Adrian made, which translates APL to C#. So SharpPlot basically is a .NET assembly that does what RainPro used to do. So it's functionally equivalent. It does the same things. It does a number of things that RainPro didn't do, but it does most of what RainPro used to do. Of course, you get performance improvement from compilation. Yeah, that is related to RainPro having to maintain a lot of parameters, and you know how APL is not necessarily good performance-wise when you have to do scalar stuff. It's very good when you're truly manipulating arrays. When you're doing GUI and stuff, the performance is not necessarily brilliant. In that case, you have the compilation advantage. The portability that comes with .NET, people might not know, but .NET is getting more and more portable. Most of the .NET assemblies are, I believe, are runnable under Linux with Mono and Mac, apart from the forms, right? Is it the only thing that wasn't implemented in Mono? I think it's the whole forms system. But apart from that, most of the .NET assemblies are runnable, are portable to Linux and Mac without too much fuss. Also, another benefit is the graphics quality that .NET brings you, which basically sums up to alpha blending, which is really, really cool when you're doing charts because it allows you to layer your data somehow, or the graphical representation of your data. So so that's it. You can have alpha blending, transparency on any chart element. And another cool thing is the ability to use .NET graphic items such as pens, brushes, images. All that .NET can do about images can be embedded in SharpPlot. Another very, very good thing, and actually my favorite things about SharpPlot, is that Adrian did a full refactoring of his code. You know what happens when you develop the same software for a number of years, which was the case in RainPro. You kind of patch things together and add bits of functionality, and at the end of the day, well, unless you're very, very clever, there is some mess going on with layers of new stuff. So refactoring here is really good, and SharpPlot is much clearer and neater than RainPro was. In particular, the documentation is really, really good. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but it's really, really good. And another cool thing is that because it's now an out-of-workspace processing, because it's a .NET assembly, it somehow doesn't get into your way as an APL developer. With RainPro, you had to import namespaces and run APL functions, and it could, well, it shouldn't, but you know, there's always, as a program, for example, me as an APL programmer, I would think, oh my God, there is APL code running in my workspace. How do I know it's not going to break things? And so, in this case, you don't have this problem because it's all a nice separate .NET assembly that you call, and it doesn't get into your workspace somehow. One drawback we can think of for SharpPlot would be the requirement of using .NET. You can think that using .NET is a bad requirement because it forces you to have .NET. What you may not know is that RainPro actually needed Win32 to do raster graphics. It needed QuadWC. It was based actually on QuadWC to do raster graphics. So, and that's why the Linux version of RainPro can only do vectorial, because that's when it generates PostScript itself. So in this case, now that if we're using .NET, we can now do raster graphics on all platforms where you can have .NET assemblies, which is, so it's actually more portable than it sounds. So here's a sample in RainPro. Okay, the display is not really. Oh, this one is slightly better. Yeah. And here's the same code, the same script in SharpPlot. So there's not a huge amount of difference, apart from being slightly neater and slightly more polished. But it's doing the same thing. Here I'm trying to convince you that SharpPlot is really doing the same as RainPro, and that migrating between the two should not impact what your software is doing. How to use it? So so now we have this package that makes charts. So what's the philosophy? How to use it? So it's, as I said, it's PostScript oriented. So in PostScript you change your coordinates, which is move your frame, in other words. And then you make path, and then you stroke them, so you draw them, and then you loop on those 3 steps. In SharpPlot, you do the same kind of loop. It's the same kind of approach. So the first thing to do is to set a frame, so decide where you're going to draw. Obviously, the first time you do that is when you instantiate a SharpPlot object, and you give the size of your paper. So here it would be an 800 points by 600 points paper. So that's saying, I'm going to draw in that place. Once you've done that, you set all sorts of parameters to say, I want this color to be used for lines. So here is doing just a couple of things. Setting the heading. I want this heading, setting the line graph style. So you set all your parameters that will decide how your chart will appear, and all the options you could set or unset about your chart. Once you've done that, you can draw stuff. So that's the first step, which should come after setting the parameters. If after drawing you change parameters, it won't affect the previous drawing. So it's really a forward-going state machine, right? So these 3 steps, you would loop on them and draw the different parts, bits and pieces that you want to do. Most of the time for simple charts, you don't loop, you just do that once. So set frame, set parameters, draw. And then once you're happy with the result, you output it. So here, for example, output it to a raster PNG. So this is a very small example script. Yeah, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-line script, and here's what it produces. So it's very basic chart, very readable, very nice. Of course, you can make it fancier if you want to, and we can do that this afternoon if you're interested. Let me now go through the chart types that SharpPlot supports. So start with, we have 1D, one-dimensional charts. So these are the infamous pie chart. I don't like him, but people use it a lot, so we have it. But yeah, okay, so it's there. Not much to say about it. And then there is the Dyalog chart, which is an interesting variation of the pie chart. So you can have several arrows pointing to several data. It's all when you have one single series of one-dimensional data. Then you have 2D, obviously. That's what I think it's the most common chart types. So you have line graph, trace, which is a variation where you plot them side by side to usually it's to detect, it's the one used by seismograph to detect sharp changes. So quite cool. You have the scatter plot, obviously, so which is probably the most used graph type with line, I believe. And then you have bar chart, which personally I don't like either, but is still used a lot. So maybe there's an inverse relationship between my taste and what people do. I don't know. Then you have a bunch of more specific to the chart types. So for example, Minmax, which is very cool when you have, for example, error bars or data that has 2 values for each X points, like typically stock data, where every day there is a minimum value and a maximum value, and open and close, and you want to see these 4 values for every X point. Or if you're doing engineering, whatever, and you have error bars on your data, you plot it that way. You have vectors, when your data is actually vectorial, so 2 points per datum. You have step chart, pretty self-explanatory, so it just flatline, and every so often it would change value discretely. And you have polar chart, which is good either when your abscissa is truly polar, or when you want to do cool, functionality comparison, like people like to do that. Actually, yeah, I like it. It's sort of readable, isn't it? When it's arbitrary abscisses, quite nice. Then you have a couple of statistical chart types. The first one is histogram, when you want to see occurrences of values. You want to measure occurrences of values and see the distribution and compare it with the normal curve and get the standard deviation and all that stuff. And you have box and whiskers, which is a really cool chart type. And probably people who are supposed to use it already know it, but I'm not a statistical guy, so I didn't know about it, and I find it really, really readable. So for every little widget you see here is a statistical distribution. So it shows you the median and the quartiles, and you can very quickly see how spread the data is, how it spreads. So it's quite cool. Then you have 3D charts. That's where you're supposed to go, woo, 3D, ooh. Yeah. So you have tower chart, wow, ooh. So it's really cool. I mean, it looks cool, right? But so it looks cool. Problem with those kind of charts is, the point of view and bits of data overlapping other data. So depending on your point of view and the shape of your data, it could be very unreadable. So it's cool, but if there's not a human that checks that it's readable, then you can't really. I mean, it's not very adapted to automatically generating charts. Fortunately, we have alternatives, which is what I call Readable 3D. And what, yeah, and what Readable 3D is actually 2D. Yeah. So this is Readable 3D. You have X, Y, and Z is the area of your bubble. So this is for discrete 3D data, and this is for continuous 3D data. So this one, contour plot, is my favorite chart type. I find it really, really cool, very readable. I love it. So here I used altitude shading that kind of resembles the one you have on the geographical maps. So it's immediately people can read it and see how data spreads. So yeah. And then you have a bunch of miscellaneous chart types like Gantt. Yeah, people want it, so it's there. Triangle for triangular data. That means you have three variables that sum up to a constant, and you want to plot that. So it's in very specific engineering fields. I've never encountered it before I discovered SharpPlot, but apparently some people use it, so it's quite cool. And you have table, obviously. Well, pretty basic. And the Venn diagram. I sort of wonder why it was there, but it's there. I mean, because why would you need to automate Venn diagram? I don't really know, but it's there. You can use it if you like Venn diagrams. Go for it. And then you have the very cool thing, and I think, and Morten emphasized that this was a unique feature, so I really have to sell it to you. SharpPlot is probably one of the very few packages that can do that. Not this one, right? This one is pretty easy. It's when you reuse axes, so you plot several series either within the same axis or with new axes on the same chart. So that's one way of doing it, multiple series. You can have multiple frames, obviously. So if you remember the loop I was talking about, you can move your frame around and draw another chart somewhere else, and then move around and make another chart somewhere else. It's pretty tedious in terms of writing the script because it's very manual, but you can make cool things like that. Then you have what is called a trellis. I'm not sure about the English word, what it's supposed to mean. Trellis. In French, trellis is military cloth, so I was wondering what that meant. But so basically what it means is you have a grid of charts, so that's easy to automate it. So you have many charts and you want to plot them together, so either a grid or just a column or just a row, and they're easy to compare, especially if they're XY plots. It's easy to compare the different charts. So it's very readable. And then you have nested charts. And that's pretty unique, right? So this is, for example, this is a bunch of polar charts nested into a scatter plot. So you have scatter plot with XY data, and for each point, you have a polar chart telling you more about what's going on at that point. And yeah, and this one is probably the most unique feature of SharpPlot. And it's very automatable, right? Here you're not telling SharpPlot, go there and plot this, and then go there and plot this. You just plot the first series, and then say for each point, plot another series. So here's an example of, so that's what I prepared for the SharpPlot workshop this afternoon. So this is, obviously the SharpPlot workshop will supposedly be a very interactive session. I hope so. So if you have input, we'll do what you want to do. If there's no input, we'll do this, just in case. So that's an example of multiple charts, and you see that I share the same x-axis for dates on the weather reports, so that you can compare these different charts together. And an example of polar application is the wind. So the y-axis on that polar chart is the wind speed, and the x-axis obviously is the wind direction, so you can sort of see how the wind is evolving through the days. It's kind of fun. Okay, so now I've been taking credit for Adrian's work, because all of this has been done by Adrian over the last 20 years. Now I'm going to talk about what I do. And this year I've been doing what we call the chart wizard, which is a little tool to help you quickly build charts in Dyalog. And it will be released with V14. So the chart wizard has basically two similar functionalities. One is a graphical data explorer. So you have data in your workspace, you have matrices with numbers or whatever, and you want to explore it. You don't just want to dump the numbers in your session, you want to see how it shapes and stuff. So that's one thing it will do. So you will open your array with the chart wizard and kind of explore it. So it's a sort of an array viewer using the chart types with some of the chart types we've seen. And another usage of it is once you've explored your data and you're happy with the chart you've produced from that piece of data, you export it as a script, as an APL function basically. And so that you don't have to write it yourself. And then you can reuse that function in your application. At the moment, the chart wizard is not a full wrapper of SharpPlot because there are too many options and parameters in SharpPlot. If we put them in the chart wizard, you would just get lost, I believe. So we try to keep it simple and keep it simple to the most frequently used features of SharpPlot. Yeah, example. So let me make a quick demo of it. So here's a bit of data. So basically I have three series. I have an angle series in radians. I have a sine series, which is the sine of that, and the cosine. Okay, this is alpha preview, so I have to do chartwizard.install because the shipped session doesn't know about the chart wizard yet. Obviously you won't have to do that in V14. And then I can point at the data and use one of these buttons that used to try to do charts but didn't really quite do it well, and where the chart wizard is supposed to be useful. Okay, the first time it does it is a bit slow. That's because of the .NET Bridge stuff. Obviously in our application code you shouldn't see that because once it's launched it works well. So let me just boot it again just to see that it's not that bad once the .NET Bridge is up. Yeah. So here are my series. So I have a little summary. Man, this is really not readable. Yeah. Bit sorry. This one is slightly better, isn't it? Yeah. So I have a data, my series. With basic chart types, series can always be brought down to a matrix. So that's what the chart wizard is doing, is taking your input and trying to figure out how to make it a matrix. In that case, it was easy because it was already a matrix. And then, so it shows you your data, and then you can click on the series and decide what they are. For example, I could decide that the first row is X, yeah, my angle. And that's what happened if I set it as X, is that now it's become the X values there, and I have true plotting of sine and cosine against the radian value, right? I could also ignore that one if I don't like it, and decide that now the sine is X, and I get a circle, obviously, yeah. So it's just to mean that you can, it's a GUI widget to help you manipulate your data and produce the chart type that goes with it. So you have a number of chart types. The mouse is, yeah, that don't always make sense. Yeah, like a response surface here with this series is not really meaningful. But so you have the basic chart types, which are line, trace, polar, response, pi. All the basic ones, really. At the moment, there are none of the specialist chart types because they require special data format. Yeah.
If you want us to both ooh and ah on a 3D chart, let us rotate it. When you take 3D data and rotate it, it becomes super fun.
Yeah, there is room for improvement there. Yeah, there is one step that I need to take. But for example, if I generate some random response data there, oh no, this one is not good. Let's generate another one. Yeah, this one is better. In the options there, I can change the point of view. So it's slightly cool. Unfortunately, it's currently implemented as roll, pitch, and yaw, and I'm not a plane pilot, and I just don't understand it. So, for example, here, if I want to move slightly to the left, I don't know which of the three things I should change. So, I think very soon there will be like errors, which is they call it theta. Well, they gave it two angle. You know, a spherical angle from the center of the chart, yeah? So you say from which angle?
But there is graphics out there where you just put your cursor on it and you start moving the cursor around and the whole thing rotates.
Yeah. I was planning on doing that, but I couldn't figure out the mathematical transformation between the mouse moving and roll, pitch, and yaw. But yeah, we'll be there soon.
My request is, do you have a parity chart? Okay, a parity chart is, in engineering terms, when you collect data and then you build a model from that data. You want to plot your measured data versus your model predictions on the X and Y, and then you draw a diagonal line, okay, that shows where, if your model was perfect, all your data should scatter around that line. Okay.
A model fit.
Yeah, it's a model fit.
Yeah, SharpPlot does model fit, yeah.
So it's not you determining the model, it's just plotting my XY data and a line, a diagonal line.
Yeah, you can definitely do that, right, sure.
Right, but I want that built in as a chart type, so I don't have to specify the line. I want you to plot the line. I want to give you X and Y, and you just plot the diagonal line for me.
Oh, just a 45-degree line in it.
Exactly.
All right, okay. That could be, that's that easy to implement.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, so that's I figured it would be easy, so that's why I want to request that you do it. Thank
45-degree line, yeah, I can do that,
yeah,
certainly.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, Adrian made those horrible heat maps, something that non-daltonic people likes a lot. I cannot understand anything of them, but they are quite popular. I didn't saw them here in SharpPlot.
Heat map?
Heat maps is something to plot some kind of multidimensional data using the size of rectangle and at the same time the color, which is the reason they are completely useless for me. But have you seen them in RainPro? They have been added.
Oh, but
and I think that Adrian is using them in its own Bloomberg add-on.
Oh, the tree map stuff.
Yeah.
When you divide a rectangle into smaller rectangle, it's there.
Is there?
Oh yes, yeah, you're right. I forgot it in my presentation.
Okay, good.
Right, let me show you then. It's there, and actually I did it. I wanted to show that in the workshop this afternoon, but I'll make a spoiler and show it here. So I wrote a little XML viewer in that way. So if I can actually take. I have a sample XML data there. So I turn it into a matrix with quad XML and plot it with a little function that uses a tree map. And what it does, it allows you to explore your XML data with that. Is that what you were thinking about? Yeah. Yeah, that one. So yeah, sorry, I forgot to put it in my presentation. Good point. Yeah. Yeah, it's that one. Tree map is called. Yeah. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to show about the chart wizard, what I found quite cool. I recently discovered that how normal distributions can be really cool. And oh, value error. And so in the chart wizard, I have implemented a very simple normal distribution function. And when you do it on a polar and you make a symmetry on the 180 degree, you get something that is really good looking, yeah? It's actually a psychological test generator. So I don't know what you see there, but we can certainly see things. Well, not that one, but yeah, scary things in there, yeah? You can explore your own psyche with charts. Isn't that cool? But yeah, so basically at the workshop we'll toy a little more with the chart wizard. We'll go a bit more in depth with SharpPlot and kind of look at all the properties we can set and how to use the .NET Bridge properly and all that stuff. We'll also talk about SharpRain, which is a tool to migrate from RainPro to SharpPlot, actually a really cool thing, which can either emulate RainPro, so it's a plug-compatible workspace. So instead of you copying from the RainPro workspace, you copy from that new workspace called SharpRain. And then you run what used to be a RainPro script. And so the same function, which is the same code, you know, hash.ch.blah, blah, blah, for those who know it. And it will translate it into SharpPlot calls and produce a SharpPlot chart instead of RainPro chart. And then, similar to the chart wizard, once you've done that, once you've emulated your script, your RainPro script in SharpPlot, you can output the log of that SharpPlot script, and it's actually the translation of your RainPro script as a SharpPlot script. So it's a really good tool if you want to migrate from RainPro to SharpPlot. So we'll do that. And then we'll do exercises. So I've prepared a couple of internet data sources to toy with if you want to chart it. But obviously, if you have better ideas about what we could do or what we could try to do together, we'll do that. So yeah, please join the party. Interest links. So if you plan on coming to the workshop, have a go at the conference site and download the zip file there with a couple of scripts. If you want to know a bit more about SharpPlot, there's a website there, sharpplot.com, with all the documentation, and you will find how good the documentation is. I must say, I didn't do it. Adrian did, but it's so I'm not like trying to sell something. It's just really, really good. And there's this website there that Veli-Matti showed me. I didn't know about it. It's quite cool. The chart type it uses are very basic, but what I found really, really cool is you can see all sorts of data about the Finnish community, the Finnish country. And I love that site. I wish we had that for my country or for any country, you know. We're in the 21st century. We should have those sort of sites for, you know, all data should be public, yeah? So this one is very cool. End of story.
We have time for any more questions? Otherwise I have, not a question, maybe a statement. We know that, very many of our customers rely on RainPro, and we're moving forward with SharpPlot now, with making it portable to Linux and the other platforms where we intend to put APL. But some of the questions asked today about, interactive features, outputting the data in a format that might be used by some other program, and the availability now of Sync, from us, the Sync Fusion libraries, and from a wide variety of other sources, graphics tools that are very easy now to integrate with Dyalog APL, mean that we do need to think about, and we'd really like feedback from you, both people who are using it and people who might need to do graphics in the future, as to how much you think we should spend effort on enhancing SharpPlot and adding some of these features versus investing in making it easier for you to use Sync Fusion and other tools, because at some point there's a trade-off. There's a limited amount of resource. We can invest in the one thing or the other. So if you have any thoughts about that, talk to us now, or send an email, or come to the workshop, and there'll be more time to discuss it there. Yep. Okay. Thank you, Nick. We have half an hour plus change, I think.